Welcome to my first impressions review of the Nike Air Zoom Tempo Next Percent. Okay, this review is going to be slightly different to some of the reviews you see on YouTube. I'm going to cut it into 3 chapters, or 3 sections, however you like to look at it. The first section is what you really want to know. What's this shoe like? How does it perform? How does it compare to other shoes? What's its purpose? The nitty-gritty of what you actually want to know about a shoe. The second chapter gets a bit more scientific, a bit more geeky, and looks at some of the data of me running in this shoe compared with its rivals and its competitors. And the third bit is the bit that you might want to know, you might not, you might have seen in another review, you might just look on the Nike website. It's the construction, it's the what's in the shoe, the foam, all of that sort of thing. Before I get stuck into the shoe review, I better be open and honest and say these were gifted to me. However, I haven't been asked to do this shoe review. I'm doing this because it's such an interesting shoe and I want to tell you my thoughts. There are plenty of positive and negative reviews out there. I'm just going to tell you what I think. Different shoes suit different people for different needs. These are my thoughts and hopefully you'll find them helpful in some way. So I've taken the shoes out twice now and I've done 2 sessions in them. The reason I've done sessions in them is because that's what they're designed for. They're Tempo Next Percent, so I went and did tempo runs in them. The shoe's been designed by Nike to be a partner to the Alphafly Next Percent. You train in these and then you race in the Alphafly. So how did they feel? Well, when I first went out in them, before I got stuck into my session, I warmed up. And let's be honest, I didn't enjoy them that much. I found them clunky, I found them a bit awkward, I didn't find them very comfortable even. But when I got stuck into the session, I did 2 by 10 minutes roughly at threshold pace. They really came alive. I really felt the pop of the AirPod. They were slightly heavier than my normal Tempo Day shoes, but my paces were surprisingly fast. I think I was averaging 5:25 pace. And yeah, I was really happy with the session and they felt good. They felt good going at those faster paces. You can feel that the plate in these shoes isn't as stiff as in the Alphafly Next Percent and isn't as stiff as some other training partners to the race shoes. But apparently that's on purpose. Nike have said that the reason they've done that is so that you train your feet do a bit more work, they become stronger. And then you get the super shoes on for race day with the stiff plate to help you. So I don't mind that there isn't a massively stiff plate in the Tempo Next Percent. There is a plate, but it's noticeably not as stiff as the Alphafly and other rival competitor shoes. But you do feel a very similar running experience to the Alphafly Next Percent. Those pods at the front, if you're landing on them with your forefoot and really bouncing off them, you really do notice them. The Zoom X foam is, as always, very bouncy. I didn't really notice the react in the heel very much because I was up on my toes running fast. I know it's been put there maybe for the heel strikers and to be a really more durable foam for those heel strikers, but for me, when I'm doing my tempo runs and even my easy runs, I'm midfoot to forefoot striking and I didn't really notice that. They're meant to be built as a more durable shoe, a training partner. You're meant to get out and do your tempos in these. And I was really surprised and happy with how fast I ran. The second session I did in them was a 5K time trial. I had done the time trial a week previously in the Alphafly Next Percent. And I'm going to be honest, they didn't perform as well as the Alphafly Next Percent. But that's to be expected. But I did run fast. They did feel good. I actually ran pretty poorly, so it's very difficult to love a shoe when you don't run as well as you'd hoped for. But there was a number of reasons for that, including the temperature. But what I did find is they are poppy when you really get landing on that AirPod. I'd almost say that these are an efficient shoe, as the Alphafly are. They're a very similar running experience to the Alphafly, and these are going to suit a lot of people for that sort of tempo sessions. I've seen a lot of reviews of these online, on YouTube, and I don't feel like enough people are giving them a shot at what they're designed for. They're designed to run tempo runs. and I've seen a lot of easy runs, hilly runs. I think you get out in these, you run fast, you do your threshold sessions in them, and that's when they come alive. As a fast threshold day shoe, I think these are a great option for many people. It can even be argued that I prefer the running experience in some other shoes, maybe like the Saucony Endorphin Speed, but I don't think they're as efficient. And that's what I'm going to go into later in the data aspect of this review, having a look at the efficiency of these different shoes. So I've talked about how I felt in them. Let's talk quickly about the fit. They fit me perfectly, absolutely perfectly. I get a good lockdown in them, and I don't find them too narrow. However, I know some people with wider feet. Kelly's got wider feet than me, and she found them very tight across the arch, and it's even given us some feet problems. So you need to, if you've got wide feet, maybe these aren't the shoe for you. However, I don't, and these fit, I wouldn't even say snugly, they just fit well. I quite like a snug fit for a workout shoe or a race shoe, and I wouldn't say they're even snug, but they're not loose either. I've got plenty of room in the toe box, a little tighter in the lockdown, but that's where I want it, on that midfoot and the arch area. And yeah, they fit me well. I'll go into the stiffness of the plate later, but you can really tell, it's, you know, there's some flex there, but if you go the other way, there really is quite a lot of flex through the plate in this shoe. Compared to the Alphafly, well, that's a lot stiffer, and there's no flex the other way. So that really is a stiffer plate. But as I said previously, that's what Nike were going for in this shoe. When it comes down to this shoe, it depends what matters to you. Is it the efficiency of the shoe? Is it the training effect you're going to get? Or is it the running experience? For me, I don't actually love running in this shoe. I find them similar to the Alphafly, which I find so efficient, but I don't love the feeling. Very bouncy, but it's almost a very different feeling to that traditional racing feel that you know, that ground contact feel that you may get. But they are an efficient shoe. They have all this cushioning. They protect your legs. You recover well after sessions. Those things are really important to me. And here we've got what looks like a much more durable shoe than the racing shoes that Nike have made. And that's great. I can now train in a durable shoe with the same feeling as I'm going to get on race day. It may not be that ground contact feel I quite like, but it's a cushioned, fast, durable shoe. So you need to decide, are you looking for efficiency and recovery benefit, or are you looking for that ground contact and that firmer feel that you might get in, say, the Endorphin Speed? Whatever suits you, you need to go with. So you've made it to part 2 of this review, and this is the data analysis, the geeky bit. So if stats and data are not your thing, skip on to part 3, which is all about what goes into the construction of the Tempo Next Percent. I'm going to dive straight into the spreadsheet, and we're going to have a little talk through what I found on my treadmill experiment. So what I did is I tried 4 different shoes at 2 different paces on the treadmill, keeping as much as I could as a fair test, but knowing there's certain things that you just can't keep the same. So if you look down the left column, you can see exactly what each part shows, but I think the important thing is to look at the average heart rate for the 5-minute blocks in each shoe. So I started in Tempo Next Percent, that was 149, heart rate's gone up to 155 in the Endorphin Speed, an average of 158 in the Fuelcell TC, and then it's dropped again in the Alphafly Next Percent. It's what we expected. You can peruse this table for as long as you like just by pausing this video and seeing what you think of the data. I'm going to pull out what I find interesting. I think you kind of expected the Tempo Next Percent as it went first to have a low average heart rate at 15 kilometers an hour. The Endorphin Speed is then 155, the Fuelcell's gone up to 158, and as expected, the heart rate's dropped again in the next percent, the Alphafly. If you go on to the 17 km/h data, then things get a bit more interesting. And this is more like a tempo run, so this is what I really care about. I've changed the order to give the Fuelcell TC a bigger advantage after they performed worst at the slower speeds. So they've come in at 171. The Endorphin Speed's then gone up to 173. You kind of expect it to go up because I am working at a harder effort and there is going to be some fatigue and some lactate build-up. What you don't expect, but what happens is, my heart rate then drops to an average of 172 in the Tempo Next Percent, despite having done 10 minutes at that 17 km/h. So that's really interesting, and that does show the efficiency of the tempo next percent. I was then surprised that the highest heart rate was the Alphafly next percent. And I guess you've got to take into account, I have then at that point done 15 minutes at 17 kilometers an hour and 20 minutes at 15 kilometers an hour, but it was surprising nonetheless. Another interesting thing to pull out of this is cadence. If you look at both the Alphafly next percent and the tempo next percent, my cadence drops compared to the other two shoes. This is because they're just so bouncy, I think. If you look at the vertical oscillation, it's highest for the Alphafly next percent and the tempo next percent, and then drops in the other two shoes. Look at the 17 kilometers an hour data for tempo next percent, a vertical oscillation of 13.6, 13 in the Alphafly next percent, and 12.4 in the speeds and the TCs. I think that shows a lot. I think it shows a lot about what these shoes are like. They're a very bouncy, efficient shoe. Perhaps if I could get my cadence up a bit higher, and if I was running a bit quicker, the tempo next percent would come into their own even more. I'm not going to bore you to death with looking at this data, but I do find it interesting. I could have done the order of the shoes differently, and I think the heart rate would have shown different data, but I think it's amazing that the tempo next percent has performed so well despite going third at the faster pace. So data's not everyone's game. Some people find it interesting, others don't. But I find that table really quite fascinating that the tempo next percent has performed so well. One thing I should say though is, despite it performing so well, it was really interesting changing from the tempo next percent into the Alphafly next percent. The tempo next percent felt okay, but when you put the Alphafly on, you really did feel that extra foam from the Zoom X foam between the pod and the foam on your forefoot. And it was a much better feeling in the Alphafly next percent, I'm not gonna lie. I could even go as far as saying, in the tempo next percent, I could almost feel the pod through the base of the shoe, and it did get a little bit uncomfortable, which I've never had in the other two sessions I've done in the shoes. So whether that become an issue or a hotspot, I don't know. But what I do know is that extra foam in the Alphafly makes that the better shoe. So if you've made it this far, then great. Let's talk about the construction of this shoe, what goes into it. We'll start with the upper. It's a fly knit upper, very, very thin material, a little bit of give, but not that much, and very light. Very similar to the 4% fly knit, really similar material, slightly different, almost a little less stretch. It actually feels in between a fly knit and an atom knit. The atom knit is the material that's on the Alphafly next percent. Okay, that's the upper, it's got a pull tag. What more do you want me to say? Let's go on to the foam. All along here, that is Zoom X foam, the expensive, light, very responsive foam. In the heel, this bit here, from there, all of that is React foam. That's the heavier foam, but a lot more durable. We've got then the signature AirPods, which are also in the Alphafly next percent. They are very cushioned and very responsive. And we've got a plate in there, which we've talked about, which isn't as stiff as the Alphafly next percent. You can see that bends a lot more than the Alphafly. I'm not sure what the plate's made of. They haven't really said. People are saying nylon, a carbon composite. I don't know. There's some sort of plate in there, but it's not very stiff. The grip, there is loads of it. Really thick rubber, and it looks pretty durable. I feel like that grip is going to be great in all conditions, and I think it is going to be a durable grip. Look how thick it is. I don't know if you can see that. That is a thick bit of grip. There's the bit here which stretches with the flex of the foot. Let's talk about the bit that interests me, the weight. So the weight of this shoe in a UK size 10 or a US 11 is 297 grams. If you compare that to the Alphafly in the same size, that is 255 grams. So it is considerably heavier, but it is a training shoe. So let's go on to stack heights, and things become a little bit confusing. So Nike haven't actually published the stack heights or the offset for the tempo next percent, and I'm not sure why. So I've done some measuring following the World Athletics measuring guidelines, and I get about 44 to 46 millimeters in the heel and about 34 to 36 millimeters in the forefoot, which gives you about a 10 millimeter offset. I get these measurements the same in a UK size 7, which was Kelly's shoe, and a UK size 10, which is interesting. So as a result, these shoes wouldn't be road legal for racing. Not that you'd want to race in these shoes anyway, but it's still worth considering. Where things get really odd is when you compare them to the Alphafly. So a UK 7.5 has a stack height in the Alphafly of 39.5 and has been published by Nike as an offset of 4 millimeters, with the forefoot coming in as 35 millimeters. Okay, got that? Well, I've measured my UK size 10 Alphafly and used the same procedure. Obviously I could be a little bit inaccurate, but my height in the heel is 50 millimeters and height in the forefoot is 40 millimeters, there or thereabouts. That's a massive increase. And not only is it an increase in stack height, which you could expect for a larger size shoe, but it's a huge increase in drop, which you wouldn't really expect. So I've got maybe an 8 to 10 millimeter drop depending on the measurements, compared to 4 millimeters at sample size. Some may even argue that this breaks the World Athletics marginal increase in stack height for a bigger shoe rule. And perhaps the Alphafly shouldn't be a road legal racing shoe, because should it increase by that much from a UK size 7.5 to a UK size 10? So it begs the question, have Nike published inaccurate offsets and it's not actually 4 millimeters at that UK 7.5? Because I haven't got one of those to measure. Or have they produced a sample size with 4 millimeters for a smaller size shoe, and then as they get bigger, they've piled in the stack height and added in loads of extra foam? I don't know. I'm really not sure with World Athletics guidelines whether they were expecting such a big increase in stack height and an increase in offset based on a shoe getting bigger. If I'm honest, it doesn't sit very well with me. If I was scaling up a shoe for a larger size foot, I'd end up with the same offset. So if you look at the percentages, in the heel, from a 7.5 to a 10, they've added 10 millimeters, which is 28.2% increase. In the forefoot, they've added about 5 millimeters, which is a 14.3% increase. So that's completely off topic with the tempo next percent, but I do find it interesting, and it's something I came across when I was doing a bit of research for this review. But going back to the tempo next percent, the interesting thing to take away is that the stack height and forefoot height doesn't seem to increase very much, if at all, in the different shoe sizes, and the offset is the same, whereas the racing version of this shoe increases a lot in the stack height, and the offset also changes. If you look at the shoes there and compare them, you can clearly see that there's a much bigger stack height in the Alphafly, and these are the same size shoes. So I measured 50 millimeters in the Alphafly and, what did I say, 46 millimeters, 44 to 46 in the Tempo Next Percent. If we actually compare the Tempo Next Percent and the Alphafly Next Percent, I actually feel like there's slightly thicker rubber on the forefoot of the Alphafly Next Percent. But when you look at the bottom, in the heel area, I do feel like there's thicker rubber then on the designed to be more durable Tempo Next Percent. This is meant to be a durable training shoe. The other thing is, you want to save your racing shoe, you want to save the Zoom X foam, which is one of the magic ingredients in these new Nike shoes. So that responsiveness in the foam is really key, so that's why you want to bang your miles in your training shoe and then race in your Alphafly Next Percent or your Vaporfly Next Percent, depending what you decide to go with. So for the construction of the shoe, I don't think there's much more to say. It's slightly heavier, less stiff plate, but it's made to be durable. Stack height slightly lower than the Alphafly Next Percent, but it's a very similar running experience. So well done if you made it through that epic review. I told you I was going to be honest, and I've given you exactly what I thought of the Tempo Next Percent. I've got to be honest, I didn't love them. They are efficient, they are durable, and they are a similar experience to the Alphafly, but they're not my favorite running experience. The feel of the shoes when I'm running doesn't excite me. I don't get excited to put these shoes on. If they do sound like the type of shoe for you, then I put a link down in the comments to go and buy them. I hope you enjoy them, I hope you get on with them. And I'd like to hear what you think of the review and the difference in stack height between these and the Alphafly in the comments. Good luck with your training. I've got some more fun videos coming on here. I'm not a big fan of shoe reviews, but I like to get my opinions across so it can help other people. But I have got lots more training, time trials, and some interesting stuff coming up on the channel. So like, subscribe, share, and I look forward to getting in the comments and seeing what you've got to say.